welcome back to Darvanalee Designs Studio. For those that don't know, my name's Nicole Reed and this is DD's Mini Quilt Club, and today we're focusing on the half square triangle and we're going to turn it into this gorgeous little mini quilt. It's about 23 inches squared. It is called Flight of the Dragonfly, and I'm going to show you two quick methods of doing half square triangles and how to square them up. So let's get started. Okay, so today we're working on the Flight of the Dragonfly, and you're going to need a few things. First of all, you need to head over to our website, and on our website we have a tab there for store, and it's got a drop down box and you'll find DD's free patterns there. Click over on that and you'll find a list of all our free patterns there. You'll find this particular one with the picture of it, and then you can just click on that and download the pattern straight away. You're also going to need some fabric. I'm using red and white today. You're also going to need some thread snips, a quick unpick, just in case, a rotary cutter, a marking device, a quilting ruler, some pins, some 60 weight thread, and also a 1/4 inch foot for your sewing machine. You're also going to need an iron and an ironing pad. Okay, so the first method that we're going to do, it's a fairly quick one. You cut your squares at 3 7/8, and basically what you're going to do, instead of cutting them on the diagonal, we're actually just going to flip our white one over and place them right sides together, and then we're just going to grab our ruler and our friction pen and we're going to draw from corner to corner. And then I'm just going to grab a pin and pop it into this side of the triangle, and then also into this side of the triangle. What we're going to do is we're going to sew either side of this line. So we're going to come down here 1/4 inch. And if you've never done it this way before, I suggest that you get your ruler and you place your 1/4 inch mark on that line that you've just drawn. Then just put a dash line and then spin it around and do the opposite side as well. And if you find that your pin's in the way, you can always just remove that. And then you're actually going to sew on those dash lines. So I'm going to head over to the sewing machine, and you can do all your pieces this way. You'll need 25 in total, and then basically you can just chain piece them through. So I'm going to head over to the sewing machine and I'll show you how to sew it. Okay, so we've set up our sewing machine and now we're at about to stitch down, and as I showed you, I've marked a solid line diagonally across our square, and now I'm going to stitch 1/4 inch on either side of that. So basically all I do is I line up my 1/4 inch foot. So I'm lining up the edge of my 1/4 inch foot on that line there, and then I am going to reduce my stitch length down to a 2, because I like to do that for my mini quilts, because I press my seams open. So then what I'm going to do is now just stitch straight down making sure that I keep my 1/4 inch foot against that line. And I just continue feeding through any of my squares that I've got, and I just keep going and chain piece them through. And now that I've actually stitched down one side, I just turn it around and go back the other way. Again, I just chain piece that through. So I've chain pieced those through. Now I'm going to head back over to the cutting board and I'll show you what we do next. Okay, so we've got our squares and we've stitched down either side of that line, and now all we're going to do is take our squares and we're going to place our ruler on the diagonal line, the solid diagonal line that we drew, grab our rotary cutter, and we're just going to cut that in half. And as you can see, now we have 2 half square triangles. And I like to press my seams open on these. So there you go. Out of those 2 squares, we've got 4 half square triangles. So it's a relatively quick way to do that. And the next way I'm going to show you is with a strip piecing. So we've learned how to do just using our squares and turn them into a half square triangle. But now I'm going to show you how to turn these strips into half square triangles. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to iron out any creases that you have in your strips. And these measure 3 7/8 the width of the fabric. And then what you're going to do is you're going to lay them right sides together, aligning up your top edges and your bottom edges, and just popping a pin in the end so they don't shift on you. And you can see there that they're lining up really nicely, so those two raw edges, you can't see one or the other. And if they're slightly bigger, that's okay, because we're gonna square them up anyway, so that's fine. Okay, so now that we've got them lining up, what you're going to do is you're going to take your ruler and you're going to mark a line straight up and down on the 3 7/8 mark, because that's how big our squares would normally be. Grab your friction pen and draw a square, and then you're going to also draw a diagonal line from corner to where you started that. So you can see there, I'll bring that a bit closer so you can see. I've got a solid line here, and then I've got a diagonal line here. Then I'm going to place the 3 7/8 mark on that solid line that we just drew, and then we're going to draw another line, and we're going to continue that all the way along the strip. Okay, so once you've done all that, you are going to then mark your diagonal lines. Okay, so then you're just going to mark corner to corner, and you're going to do this all the way up the strip. So you can see there I've got like a zigzag happening up. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a couple of pins into my strip so I know that they're not going to move as I'm sewing them, making sure that your raw edges are all aligning up. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to head over to the sewing machine, and just like we did before, we're going to sew 1/4 inch on either side. So if you've never done this before, as I said before, you can just add your 1/4 inch mark on your ruler, place that on the solid line, and then you can just put a dash mark, and that just reminds you that that's where you've got to sew. So just to recap, you've cut 2 strips at 3 7/8 inches on the width of the fabric, and then you'll have from the edge of your strip, you've marked 3 7/8 in, and then all the way along your strip, every 3 7/8 you're going to put a solid line up and down your strip. Then you're going to come back to the beginning and you're going to do a diagonal one, making a zigzag up and down the strip. Now you're going to head over to the sewing machine and you're going to sew 1/4 inch in a zigzag fashion, and then you'll come back along. Okay, so I just showed you how to mark your strip out, and now what we're going to do is we're going to sew it. So you're just going to, like you have before, do your 1/4 inch. So you line the edge of your 1/4 inch foot with the solid line that you drew. Okay, and then we're going to stitch up to that solid line. And with the needle in the down position, you're going to spin, and you're just basically going to sew a zigzag all the way up this strip. So again, we're lining this line here with the edge of our 1/4 inch foot, and I'm just sewing it down to the end. Okay, so you can see here that I've got to the end, because this isn't a square over this way. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn that around, and then I'm going to sew back the other way, doing exactly what I've just done with this particular end of the strip. So as you can see, I'm just lining up my 1/4 inch foot with the solid line, and then I'm just stitching along, and I'll do that zigzag pattern all the way back to the other end. Okay, so we have stitched a 1/4 inch all the way along, and you can see there it's just like a zigzag. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to remove our pins, Okay, we're going to grab our ruler and we're going to grab our rotary cutter, and basically all we're going to do is make some cuts. So that solid line that we've drawn across there that we stitched up to, we're just going to cut on that. Okay, so we've got all our units there that we've just cut, so you can see now they look similar to the ones that we did before. So again, you're just going to place your ruler on that diagonal and you're going to cut corner to corner. So there we go. So basically from that one strip, we've got 16 units, half square units there, and I'm going to give them all a really good press. Okay, so you're going to, now that you've made all your half square triangles, you're actually going to square these up to 3 1/4. So grab your ruler that's got a clear 45 on it. I like to use this one here. It's a Le Summit. It's fluoro and it's just got a clear, just 145 degree. It's my go-to ruler for squaring up half square triangles. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that 45 degree angle onto my half square triangle here. And are going to then find your 3 1/4 mark, and I line it up on the bottom corner here, and I can see that it's kicking out a little bit, so I've got a little bit to trim off. So I might bring that in just a touch, so I've got a little bit extra. You can see there that I'm now ready to cut. So keeping that 45 degree angle on the seam, I'm ready to cut, and I can just trim that side bit off and the top bit off. Get rid of that, and then I'll turn that around, and then I'll line that 45 degree up, and this time I'll line the edge of the half square triangle up with my 3 1/4 mark, and I'll bring that down, and you can see here that it's lining up perfectly. Whoops. So it's lining up nice and perfect, and now I'm safe to trim the rest off. So you're going to repeat that with the rest of your half square triangles, and so you want them all to look nice and neat like that, and then we'll be ready for final assembly. So you would have your layout sheet. Mine's a little bit larger than the one that's in the pattern, but you've got your layout sheet, and you're going to take your half square triangles and you're going to lay them out as the rows you can see here. So we've got 7 rows and we're going to go across by 7. And if you lay them out in exactly the same fashion, you'll get this same pattern. So let's start laying them out. So you can see there, that's row 1, and then you just keep continuing down. Okay, so you can see there that that's all laid out, and now what we're going to do is we're going to sew each row together. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to start from here and you're just going to stack them on one another, and then with your friction pen you're just going to write row 1. And then you repeat that with row 2. And again with row 3, and you keep doing that right up to row 7. Okay, so we're going to head over to the sewing machine and we're going to sew each of our rows together. Then once we've done that, we'll press our seams open and lay our rows out again, and then we'll start joining the rows together, and then we'll be finished with assembly. Okay, so we've pressed all that and we've got it all in the layout that is on our layout sheet. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add row 1 to row 2. So basically all you're going to do is take them right sides together, and you can see that all my seams are pressed open, and then you're going to grab your pins and you're going to line up all your seams. And because we are working with half square triangles, you want to make sure that you are actually lining everything up correctly, because otherwise you will lose your points, and you just need to take it nice and slow and use as many pins as you need to. And you'll see by here when I'm doing this one that you'll see that I'll actually use a lot of pins. So just taking each seam and lining those up, making sure our raw edges are lining up as well, and popping a pin in. And just like I did with the 4 patch last month, I go into the seam and I come out in the seam as well, and then I know that those seams are lining up very well. And you want to make sure, so you can see there that my seam folded over, so you want to make sure that that doesn't happen as well. And there you go, you can see that I've gone through on there as well, so I know that those seams are lining up perfectly. And again, just keep going along until you've done them all. Okay, so you can see there that that's all pinned together. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew right along that edge there using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then I will press that open and then add row 3, and I'll continue on down the quilt until it's all together. Okay, so we have our quilt top all done, and now what we need to do, our borders. So first of all, you cut your borders to the measurements that are in the pattern, and then you're going to do your top and your bottom. Okay, so our top and bottom borders are on, and now we just need to put our side borders on. Okay, so our borders are on, and now we're up to quilting. So what I'm going to do is actually mark out how I want it quilted, and again I'm just going to go on the white part of the quilt today, and I'm just going to stitch a 1/4 inch out from the red and white seam. So basically all I'm going to do is just grab my ruler, and I'm going to lay it on top here, and you can see that my 1/4 inch line is laying on that seam, and then I'm just going to put some lines all the way down, and then I'll turn it. Okay, so you can see I've marked it out, and I'm a 1/4 inch away from the seams, and I'm going to continue doing that all over the quilt wherever there's a white fabric, and then I'm just going to bind it in the same fabric that I've got here. So I'm going to go ahead and finish doing that, and then I'll come back and show you it all quilted. Okay, so you can see here that I've done all the quilting that needs to be done on it, and now it's ready for binding. So I will leave a link down below this video of a binding video that I've done to make it super easy for you, especially if you've never done binding before. It goes through step by step, so it makes it super simple for you. But I really hope that you enjoyed making this little half square triangle quilt, and I'm going to use mine as a table topper. And as I said, all I've got to do now is get the binding on, and I'm using the same color as I did for the half square triangles. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us today. I really do hope that you enjoyed this little tutorial on how to do some half square triangles. I've given you 2 ways of doing them, and if you did like this video today, give us a thumbs up down below and hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it, and that way you won't miss out on any future posts. And as always, we love to hear from you, so please leave us a comment down below and tell us how you went with the half square triangles. And for those that don't know, my name's Nicole Reed for Darvanalee Designs Studio, and I'll see you all again next time. Bye for now.